On June 21st, 2025, 7 B-2 stealth bombers took off from Missouri, carrying the most powerful conventional bombs America has ever built. They flew for 18 hours, refueling midair 3 times, heading toward Iran. At 2:10 a.m. local time on June 22nd, the first bomb hit. A 30,000-pound bunker buster plunged deep into a mountain near the city of Qom, targeting the Fordow nuclear enrichment facility buried 300 feet underground. 13 more bombs followed. The operation lasted 25 minutes. Trump called it a spectacular military success. He said Iran's nuclear facilities had been completely and totally obliterated. That was 7 months ago. Subscribe to Capital Prime and turn on notifications, because what Trump did in June, and what he's threatening to do right now, reveals a pattern. And understanding that pattern is the key to predicting what comes next. This is the story of Operation Midnight Hammer. How Trump bombed Iran's nuclear program, how he's using the exact same playbook he used in Venezuela, and why protesters in Iran who believed his promises now feel betrayed. In February 2025, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited Washington. He brought a slide deck presentation showing how Iran was increasing its uranium stockpile and advancing centrifuge technology. According to Netanyahu, Iran was approaching the nuclear threshold, the point where it could produce enough weapons-grade uranium for multiple nuclear bombs. Trump wanted to try diplomacy. His team decided on a 60-day outline to settle on an agreement. But here's what was happening behind the scenes. While Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, was negotiating with Iran, Trump was simultaneously preparing for war. According to multiple sources, the Pentagon had been positioning military assets for months. B-2 bombers, submarines, over 125 aircraft total, fighter jets to draw Iranian air defenses, refueling tankers, reconnaissance planes. This is the pattern you need to understand. Trump talks about diplomacy while preparing for sudden military action. On May 31st, 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that Iran had sharply increased its uranium stockpile to 60% purity. Just below weapons grade, the amount was enough for multiple nuclear weapons if further enriched. Iran responded to an IAEA censure on June 12th by announcing it would create a new uranium enrichment facility at an unknown location. The next day, June 13th, Israel launched surprise strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. And Trump made his decision. Let me walk you through exactly what happened, because the operational details matter. At midnight Eastern Time on Friday, June 20th into Saturday, June 21st, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers launched from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. Some headed west as decoys. The rest proceeded quietly to the east with minimal communications throughout the 18-hour flight. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Dan Kane, described it as a complex operation requiring exact synchronization across multiple platforms in a narrow piece of airspace. At approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, just before the strike package entered Iranian airspace, a U.S. submarine inside Central Command's area of responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles against surface infrastructure targets at the Isfahan nuclear site. Shortly after, as the strike package entered Iranian airspace, the U.S. employed deception tactics. F-35 and F-22 stealth fighters pushed out in front of the bombers at high altitude and high speed, sweeping for enemy fighters and surface-to-air missiles. Iran didn't fire back, according to Trump. They never even detected the aircraft. At 6:40 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:10 a.m. in Iran, the lead B-2 bomber dropped 2 massive ordnance penetrators on the Fordow nuclear site. Each bomb weighed 30,000 pounds. Each carried 11 tons of TNT equivalent explosive power. They're designed specifically to penetrate deep underground bunkers. The remaining bombers hit their targets between 6:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. Natanz, Isfahan, all three of Iran's operational nuclear enrichment sites, 25 minutes, 14 bunker buster bombs, over 75 precision-guided weapons total. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called it an incredible and overwhelming success. Trump said Iran's nuclear program had been completely and totally obliterated. Here's where the story gets complicated. Initial U.S. assessments suggested the sites were severely damaged. A July 2025 Pentagon assessment found that Iran's nuclear program was likely set back around 2 years. But satellite imagery told a different story. Fordow, the facility buried deepest underground, was substantially damaged but not completely destroyed. Israeli officials told the New York Times the site had sustained serious damage but hadn't been completely destroyed. And here's the critical detail. Before the strike, Iran had accumulated over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity. That's enough material for multiple nuclear weapons. After the strike, U.S. intelligence couldn't locate it. Iran had moved most of its stockpile before Operation Midnight Hammer. The location remains unknown to this day. So Trump destroyed the facilities, the buildings, the centrifuges, the infrastructure, but the enriched uranium that could actually be turned into weapons, gone. Hidden somewhere in Iran's network of 30 odd nuclear sites. On June 23rd, Iran fired short and medium-range ballistic missiles at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the regional headquarters for U.S. Central Command, housing thousands of U.S. troops. Qatar's advanced air defense systems intercepted the incoming missiles. No American casualties. No damage. Trump responded with social media posts threatening force far greater than what was witnessed if Iran continued attacks. He also posted, if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA. The next day, June 24th, 2025, a ceasefire was announced between Iran and Israel. The 1-2 day war was over. For 6 months, Iran lived with the consequences of Operation Midnight Hammer. Its nuclear program was crippled. Its economy was devastated. Inflation hit 42.2% in December. Food prices jumped 72%. And the Iranian currency, the rial, collapsed. On December 28, 2025, protests erupted in Tehran's Grand Bazaar. Merchants angry about the currency devaluation. But the demonstrations quickly spread. By early January 2026, the protests had expanded across 17 provinces. Students joined. Workers joined. This wasn't just about the economy anymore. People were chanting death to the dictator. They were calling for systemic reform. Some were calling for regime change. And Trump was watching. On January 2nd, 2026, just 3 weeks ago, Trump posted on Truth Social at 3 a.m., if Iran shots and violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom, the United States of America will come to their rescue. We are locked and loaded and ready to go. Protesters in Iran took heart. They believed him. On January 8th, following calls by Iran's exiled crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, millions took to the streets across the country. It was the largest protest movement since the 1979 revolution. The Iranian regime responded with brutal force. According to the human rights activists' news agency, at least 2,615 people were killed. Some estimates put the number as high as 12,000 over just 2 nights, January 8th and 9th. On January 13th, Trump doubled down. He posted, "Help is on its way." He met with his national security team. The Pentagon presented him with military options, targets for a possible strike, including nuclear and ballistic missile facilities. The U.S. ordered some non-essential personnel to leave Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the same move they made before Operation Midnight Hammer. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu urged Trump to hold off. Gulf allies scrambled to prevent war. They feared an attack could explode into all-out conflict. And then, on January 15th, Trump reversed course. He announced that Iran's regime had agreed to stop killing protesters. He claimed the killing has stopped. Iranian protesters felt betrayed. Let me read you what protesters in Iran told Time magazine. An arts teacher in Tehran, he's not only yellow on the outside, he's also yellow inside. Another Iranian who traveled out of the country, after he said the Iranian authorities had told him there won't be any more killings, everyone was just stunned. A woman in Tehran, it's already martial law. Now, after Trump went back on his word, they've become even more brazen. I saw a checkpoint where they were checking people's cell phones. I've lost all hope. Trump's not going to do anything. Why should he? He doesn't care about us. Trump had promised military intervention. He said help was on the way. Protesters believed him, and then he backed down. Step back and look at what Trump has done in his second term. Venezuela, negotiations, talks about diplomacy. Then suddenly, military planes, special operations, regime capture. Iran in June, 60-day diplomatic window. Negotiations through intermediaries. Then suddenly, Operation Midnight Hammer. Iran in January promises to protesters help is on the way. Pentagon prepares options. Then, suddenly, backing down. The pattern isn't consistent action. The pattern is unpredictability. Trump uses negotiations as cover while preparing for sudden strikes. But he also backs down when allies pressure him, or when the political calculation changes. For Iran, that creates an impossible situation. They don't know when he's bluffing and when he's serious. For protesters, it means Trump's promises are worthless. He'll encourage them to risk their lives, then abandon them when it's politically convenient. According to multiple reports, Middle Eastern governments, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, lobbied the Trump administration not to strike Iran. They feared an attack would explode into all-out war. Iranian retaliation could target oil infrastructure. Shipping lanes could be disrupted. The entire region could destabilize. Netanyahu also told Trump to hold off. Israel didn't want to be dragged into another war so soon after the June conflict. And domestically, Trump faced pushback. Republican Senator Marjorie Taylor Greene, normally a strong ally, said Trump threatening war and sending in troops to Iran is everything we voted against in '24. So Trump backed down. He claimed victory, said the killing had stopped, that his threats worked, but the killing didn't stop. Tehran's prosecutor announced on January 16th that indictments have been issued for numerous cases. Protesters continue to be arrested, tortured, executed. Trump's approach to Iran reveals several things. First, he's willing to use overwhelming military force when he decides diplomacy has failed. Operation Midnight Hammer was real. It happened. It was devastating. Second, he makes decisions impulsively, often overruling advisors and allies. The June strike came just 48 hours after he publicly announced a 2-week deadline. Third, he uses threats strategically, but doesn't always follow through. Locked and loaded doesn't necessarily mean action. It means pressure. Fourth, he treats human lives, including protesters he claims to support, as expendable in his broader geopolitical games. As of right now, late January 2026, the situation is the protests in Iran have been largely crushed. The regime shut down internet access. Security forces killed thousands. At least 16,784 people have been arrested. Trump imposed a 25% tariff on any country doing business with Iran. He sanctioned 5 Iranian officials involved in the crackdown. But he didn't launch military strikes. He didn't send troops. Help never arrived. Iran's nuclear program remains crippled, but not destroyed. The enriched uranium is still out there, location unknown. Iran retains the knowledge and industrial capacity to rebuild. And Trump continues to threaten. On January 19th, just days ago, he told reporters, "Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again, and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down." will knock the hell out of them. So the cycle continues. Threats, negotiations, preparation for war, backing down. More threats. 7 months ago, Donald Trump ordered the bombing of Iran's nuclear facilities in the largest US military operation against Iranian targets in decades. He called it a spectacular success. He said the facilities were obliterated. They weren't. Iran's enriched uranium is hidden somewhere. The program was set back but not destroyed. 3 weeks ago, Trump told Iranian protesters help is on the way. He said he was locked and loaded. Millions of people risked their lives believing him. Then he backed down. At least 2,600 people, possibly 12,000, were killed. Protesters feel betrayed. And now Trump is threatening again, saying if Iran rebuilds, he'll knock the hell out of them. This is the pattern. Negotiations as cover, sudden strikes when allies allow it, backing down when pressure mounts, abandoning people who believed his promises. The question now is, when will he strike next? Because the pattern suggests it's not if, it's when and who. Subscribe to Capital Prime, turn on notifications, share this video, because understanding Trump's pattern is the only way to predict what comes next. Drop a comment. Do you think Trump will bomb Iran again? Or was Operation Midnight Hammer a one-time event? This is Capital Prime, where we investigate power, follow patterns, and refuse to let propaganda replace reality. I'll see you in the next investigation.